On behalf of our AMSIMs, I want to thank you both for your participation in our forum, which to our opinion demonstrates at its best the support of US government towards our initiative, particularly, but more generally, towards activities and actions that on one hand are addressing issues related to environment and climate change, and on the other are aiming in enhancing regional collaborations in all levels for tackling such critical problems of common concern. We will start with your initial remarks. Ambassador Garber, thank you for being with us. Can you hear us, by the way?
Yes, I hope you can hear me. It's a real pleasure to be with you today. Thank you.
Perfectly can hear you. So we will start with your initial remarks, and then we will continue with a short Q&A with a few questions I have prepared for you. So please, Ambassador Garber, can you start with your initial remarks? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, and everyone, good afternoon from Nicosia. Thank you, Elias, and it's great to my friend and colleague Maria Olson again, even though it's remotely. And a huge thank you to our hosts, the American-Hellenic Chamber of Commerce, the American Chamber of Commerce in Nicosia, and the U.S.-Israeli Chamber of Commerce for organizing this absolutely fantastic event. As many of the speakers that have already gone have noted, we're at a moment right now in time where great ambition is needed to address the danger of climate change and its potentially devastating consequences should we fail to act. Only together will we be able to achieve the essential goal of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Our oceans, including the Eastern Mediterranean, are especially critical in this effort, from helping to regulate the air we breathe to, as is already pointed out, hosting a wealth of species and biodiversity, to a primary source of protein for millions of people around the world, and not to mention the economic wealth generated by the Eastern Mediterranean, whether facilitating shipping, sustainable fishing, the livelihoods of so many in the region, or for tourism and many, many other areas as well. The United Nations dedicated this decade to protecting our oceans, calling it the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. The United States is seeking to lead by example in this global effort and have been asking countries to join us in action to protect our shared ocean. I look forward to discussing some of the ways we are showing that leadership during the panel discussion today. And I'm especially proud to join this panel because, as Maria knows, for me, working on global environmental issues has been a passion of mine for a long time. George made references to the work that we at the embassy have been doing here, specifically on plastics pollution, beaches and plastics, just trying to educate, show an example, show how important it is to get out in front of this. I've seen here firsthand how at risk the Eastern Mediterranean is and what an important role the East Med plays in the commerce, food security, and as a driver of tourism for countries of the region. Its health is essential to being able to make sure that this region stays prosperous, and its health is tremendously at risk. Particularly as when we're talking about plastics, I know when I first came here, the University of Nicosia had recently done a study on plastics in drinking water, and it showed that already microplastics were in most centers of drinking water throughout the island and pretty much every testing area. I think if you do the same in terms of testing the water quality from most of the sources of water here, you see it, the same issue. And has already been pointed out, key to this is going to be how we address waste management, land-based sources of pollution, and then how we educate and train and change with the private sector leading the way to how we can all set a better example and make sure going forward that we're treating the Eastern Mediterranean with the respect it deserves so it can provide us the wealth and benefits that we've all come to love and enjoy and need. So with that, thank you very much, and I look forward to today's conversation.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Garber, and we thank you for participating here in this forum. I will pass the floor to Deputy Chief of Mission, Ms. Marie Olson, for your initial remarks.
My thanks also to the Chamber for organizing this event, and thank you really to everybody who's in the room, because I think, as Ambassador Garber, my friend and colleague, mentioned, this is a global challenge, and one that will require innovative solutions from really all of us. No one person has the answers, and so it's going to take great minds, and I appreciate you all being here today and taking interest in this topic. I'm old enough to remember, back in the 1970s when I was a kid, riding in a car and watching people throw litter out the window of the car, and also remember being a kid in the American Midwest and going along the side of the road because my mom made me go out and pick up trash as kind of public service, collecting the bottles and taking them into the grocery store and collecting the 10 cents for every bottle. And that was a way that we dealt with the litter problem back then. Flash forward, almost 40 years later, to being here in Greece, only 3 months, but having the opportunity to get to know some very beautiful areas in the East Med, and really understanding what a source of wealth and joy they are for people who live here and who visit here, and understanding it's incumbent on all of them to try to protect them. My ambassador, Spirtounias, was up in Thessaloniki several days ago with many of our embassy staff, with the American Chamber at the Energy Forum there, where we talked about energy challenges that the region is facing and actions that we'll need to take in almost the immediate future because of the conflict going on in the region. I think the climate conversation is a fitting companion to that piece, because they're really two parts of the same story, and they need to be discussed together. And now is the time for us to act on both of them. There's been a lot of debate about climate change, but I think we're at the point where we know that it's not up for debate. We see the effects everywhere, and they're growing every day. Waterways around the world are evaporating, and unprecedented natural disasters are at our front door. I know I spent the last 3 years back in Washington working on Greece, Cyprus, and other Mediterranean issues, and watched from Washington as Greece suffered from tragic wildfires, and remembered the snowstorm that happened in the past year. So our behaviors as a whole need to change, and we need to collectively take action to address the impacts of climate change, and we need to act now. President Biden has made the climate crisis a top priority. We rejoined the Paris Agreement on day one of his administration, and the president passed a $1.2 billion infrastructure bill, and this summer he signed the Inflation Reduction Act, which has an important component to address climate legislation in US history. I think for those of you who followed the news, our former Secretary of State, John Kerry, who's now our climate guy, recently visited Greece, went to the Acropolis, and sounded the alarm for action on climate change. And he praised Greece's leadership role. We, as the United States, applaud the many actions Greece has taken thus far under the leadership of Prime Minister Mitsotakis. I understand from my team, I'm still getting up to speed on the many issues here, but I've been here for 3 months, but I understand that marine protection areas will be expanded by 30% by 2030, and there are specific programs to protect sea turtles and seals. And I'm still learning about the 7 Mountains Protection Challenge and the 1,000 unspoiled beaches, but without knowing details of this, I can say I fervently support. These are all critical steps in the right direction to safeguard Greece's national treasures and really your identity. I think this year we've seen unprecedented tourists, which is a sign of just how many treasures Greece has and why it's so important to protect them. As I'm making my way around Athens and getting to know people here and trying to understand the issues that you all are working on, I met with Greek ship owners, and one of those ship owners told me, we live with the sea, we live by the sea, and we are the sea. So it's really fitting for Greece to be leading discussions like this one. We, the United States, are working with Greece on this circular economy, or the no waste economy. to minimize waste, maximize reuse of materials, and utilize sustainable processes to protect our natural resources. But we can't do it alone. We're delighted that Greece will be hosting the 2024 Our Oceans Conference. That's a great forum to bring countries and people committed to these efforts together. And these are people who have the ability to make a real difference. Greece is a natural leader, and as a host will attract greater attention and participation in this conference. We're happy to see that Greece is moving forward with the implementation of the deposit refund recycling scheme, because changing consumer behavior takes time and requires incentives. This is why implementing a system that's transparent, interoperable, and with standard pricing is really key. While consumers like myself way back in the 70s have to be incentivized, producers have to be able to recoup investments into the system in order to ensure continued investment and quality operations. We at the U.S. Embassy are happy to have firms such as Envipco and Coca-Cola as active participants in the future system. And we really thank the government of Greece for being open to suggestions in the implementation of a system that will ensure Greece's status as a green nation. So with that, I really look forward to the discussion. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Ms. Olson. I have some questions here, and I hope you can respond to those. Ambassador Garber, and of course, to you, Ms. Olson, as well. Can you share with us today the U.S. government initiatives regarding the Mediterranean and the seas protections overall? Are there any relative programs that promote and support technological innovations towards the seas protection? And I'm asking these questions because many initiatives and many activities need sponsorship, needs funding, and we're wondering whether, State Department or other departments within, the U.S. government or other association organizations are committed, to fund such, let's say, initiatives. So, I don't know, Ambassador Garber, if you want to take the lead here.
No, happy to. And the short answer is yes. The slightly longer answer is there's many of them, far too many to really be able to detail today. The State Department's role in this is not so much in the Eastern Mediterranean. It's much more in countries that need our bilateral development assistance and trying to engineer programs there. But the Environmental Protection Agency, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, many of them have initiatives in the plastics and East Mediterranean, well, not East Mediterranean specific, but arenas that Eastern Mediterranean can tap and take advantage of. Maria mentioned, and we're absolutely thrilled about it, as she said, that Greece has offered to host the 9th Our Ocean Conference in 2024. And that particular process has been an amazing one about bringing the world together with concrete commitments in various areas of activity to make sure that change is happening, that it's absolutely being completed, that there is full accountability and transparency of what those commitments are, and then making sure that they're followed all the way through. At the Our Ocean Conference this year, which the United States co-hosted with Palau, for example, we highlighted the Ocean Climate Nexus and the role of ocean-based climate solutions, including shipping decarbonization, which is something I know the Republic of Cyprus is very active on, as is Greece, maritime nature-based solutions, and well as offshore renewable energy, which Maria was alluding to, that nexus between energy and climate and being two sides of the same coin earlier. At the Our Ocean Conference this year specifically, the United States announced over 110 specific commitments related to our ocean, totaling $2.6 billion. This is not just a passing commitment, this is a significant commitment. 500 million of this was to enhance ocean and climate observation and modeling, go back to the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. 160 million was for our own National Coastal Resilience Fund, because we've seen how much climate change is affecting our fisheries, are ocean-based industries. And we are sharing many of the lessons learned with other countries, as well as learning from other countries from how they've been able to address and resolve some of this. And also, we have a number of commitments in the area of sustainable fisheries, which I know is also very key to Greece here, as well as sustainable blue economies and marine protected areas, of which President Biden has committed to expand our marine protected areas. And here in Cyprus, I know there's a huge commitment to continue expanding marine protected areas as well. And we're looking forward to working very closely with the Cypriots on that particular challenge.
Olson, do you want to add something on this one?
Sure, just to add on, I think one of the things that the United States government is particularly good at is working with the private sector and the Chamber and other organizations to develop technology and standards for future public-private partnerships. And I think we will continue to play that convening role.
Thank you. You're going to be here, I guess, in 2024 when the 9th International Summit that John Kerry announced will take place. So I guess, there will be quite, preparation by the U.S. Embassy. How the United States support and enhance this, summit actually? To what extent you believe we can have some results here, some outcomes, considering that the many summits took place actually in the past, and we don't see, rapid, let's say, drastic, let's say, results, out of those. So do you expect that this summit might be something different? It might come up with some strong outcomes?
So what I will say is, what I will say here is what I say often to my team. Look, we don't have a magic wand that we can wave and solve this problem, but the problem is real and it's an important one. We're pleased here in Greece to be able to engage with the Greek shipping industry. The shipping industry is so important to the global economy, but will be so critical to solving this and addressing this problem. I think Special Envoy Kerry came here to start this conversation. He was pleased with the progress he made discussing the green shipping challenge with our Greek interlocutors. And he was speaking both with government officials and private sector representatives. So that conversation continues.
Thank you. What is the role you consider the American chambers and the U.S. embassies can play to support your efforts by creating regional collaborations and demonstrating their network capabilities in motivating business and other stakeholders in addressing environmental issues? And I'm asking because, as you mentioned, there is a great cooperation between the embassies and the AmChams. Mm-hmm. So how this can be enhanced further, and what more we can do in order to tackle such problems, critical problems, speaking about climate, of course, and pollution, environmental pollution. I don't know whether Ambassador Garber, you want to first answer this question?
Sure. I'll kick it off and then turn over to Maria. But I think the private sector has to lead the way here. There's only so much that governments are able to do, but what we do is kind of theoretical and set rules of the game. But you guys are on the front lines. What you do can make a difference. What you do can make a tremendous demonstrative effect. And the fact that the Hellenic American Chamber of Commerce, the U.S. Israeli Chamber of Commerce, has these committees that are very much focused on this and launching this new platform on litter-free is already showing your commitment and how important that issue is to your members. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. You guys will be showing the way on circular economy, on innovation, on technology, and how this is really going to make a difference. Your partnership is actually essential. If it's just governments, it's not going to happen because we're not the real economy. You are. That's where it makes a difference. So it's incredibly important. Last year at COP26, we launched something called the First Movers Coalition, which is a program that rallies the private sector to speed up clean energy innovation. And as Maria was pointing out, clean energy and environmental protection are really two sides of the same coin. So what we're hoping is this will help us unlock a path to net zero emissions by 2050. And we're hoping that this will include members of the coalition from all the different technology sectors, whether we're talking about decarbonizing steel or shipping, which I know is so important to Greece and to the Republic of Cyprus, or aviation, trucking sectors, and trying to tackle those most difficult sectors that contribute so much today to our shared challenge of climate change. So that was the long answer. The short answer is yes. It's fantastic the three of you are working together on this, and can't wait to continue to partner with you on it.
Thank you. I don't know whether, Ms. Olson, you want to add something on this one?
Just since you mentioned regional collaboration, I would just say we also have the 3+1 climate framework, which provides an additional forum to address common climate-related issues. Greece just chaired an energy infrastructure 3+1 working group. The 3+1 is a formulation where the U.S. works with Greece, Cyprus, and Israel on shared challenges, sharing ideas, and also coming up with solutions. So there was just a 3+1 energy infrastructure working group last month that touched on a lot of the environmental issues associated with the green transition. And I will just say, I know as part of the energy conversations that are taking place in the context of what's happening in Ukraine, and in the context of the threats that Vladimir Putin is issuing in relation to European energy, there's discussion about electrical interconnectors that would bring green energy from Africa to Greece, or link Cyprus and Israel to the European continent, that are of significant interest in terms of both climate mitigation, but also lessening dependence on Russian hydrocarbons. So we're happy to continue this close cooperation with the Chamber and also with the private sector.
Thank you. By the way, Ambassador Garber, you mentioned about the First Mover Coalition, this initiative, which when I heard about it and I went, to the website, actually it's fantastic. And I hope, we do hope, that many more companies actually will join, and it shows how the business sector actually can drive, some things, further down, and we hope. Just a last question, before we close, this conversation. Given the latest geopolitical developments and the energy crisis that puzzle most of the governments, by the way, do you think there will be some setbacks here in projects and programs related to climate and environmental protection? Perhaps changing priorities, either in the U.S. government or other governments, Do you think there is a danger here with what is happening right now in the world?
I think what it really shows is the importance of moving off a fossil fuel-based economy, because if we had moved with more alacrity on some of the issues that we knew we had to address because of the climate crisis earlier, there would be less dependence today on Russian natural gas. So while in the short term, there's definitely going to be some pain, and I'm not trying to minimize that at all for anybody, and we're looking at ways we can diversify, because the solutions to the energy crisis aren't going to be tomorrow's solutions. It also provides a very powerful incentive to move even more quickly to renewable energy sources. So it's not a simple answer, but I think if anything, it shows and underscores the importance of moving forward with more renewable sources of energy.
I couldn't have said it better than Ambassador Garber.
I want to thank you both. It was an honor for us to have you both here. Ambassador Garber from Cyprus and Deputy Chief Mission, Ms. Olson, thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to enhance our collaboration, our AMSAMs with you, and hopefully, having some great results in the next few. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So we have the next panel.